Does it get any more British than this? The monarch carried by a horse-drawn procession to Parliament to speak from her throne.
My government will use the opportunity of a strengthening economy.
Her voice, but not her words, because the Queen is simply reading a speech written for her by the government. She's mastered the skill of keeping her thoughts to herself. We never have any idea what she thinks. And that's one of the secrets to her longevity. She never offends because she never expresses a political view, allowing her to retain cross-party support in Parliament, which is the one body with the power to take the crown from her. High above her in the Victoria Tower, centuries of legal papers and parchments are kept, but none are entitled the Constitution, because there isn't a written version. All these laws taken together, along with various conventions, form an unwritten constitution that's tested from time to keep it relevant. No time more so than now. Well, if Parliament is the highest authority in the land and the Queen is accountable to it, then so is the government. And the convention that protects the Queen from accusations of political interference is that she only acts on the advice of the Prime Minister. And the most recent example of that was when Boris Johnson asked her to approve a suspension of Parliament, which she agreed to without questioning it.
There's far too much noise in this chamber.
So far, the system is working, but it could grind to a halt if one of two things happen this week. If parliamentarians want to block a no-deal Brexit, they could pass a bill to that effect. But then Boris Johnson may refuse to send it to the Queen for approval. Or they could call a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson's government, and he could refuse to resign. Both of those scenarios are being openly discussed in Westminster, and they could ultimately end up here at Buckingham Palace at the desk of the Queen. There is nowhere else for them to go, and she'll be left in the horribly uncomfortable situation of having to choose between her Prime Minister's advice and the will of Parliament. That places her right in the middle of the biggest UK political crisis in modern times, and exactly where she doesn't want to be. Max Foster, CNN, Buckingham Palace, London.
We're back with our politics lead. President Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, was subpoenaed today by the House Judiciary Committee to testify publicly about possible obstruction of justice by President Trump, as detailed in the Mueller report. This just the latest move from House Democrats in what Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler has said are formal impeachment proceedings. Lewandowski is expected to attend President Trump's re-election rally tonight in New Hampshire, amid speculation that he will launch a run for Senate there, challenging Democratic incumbent Jeanne Shaheen. The president has voiced support for a Senator Lewandowski, though the Republican establishment in the Granite State is less enthusiastic, let's say. Let's get right to CNN's Caitlin Collins near where the president has been vacationing in New Jersey. Caitlin, how is the White House reacting to the subpoena?
Well, Jake, they were expecting this. So behind the scenes, they've been having what I'm told are these preliminary discussions about potentially trying to invoke executive privilege to limit Corey Lewandowski from complying with this congressional subpoena. Now, we've seen the White House take this route before with former aides like Don McGahn, Hope Hicks, McGahn's deputy, Andy Donaldson. But this would be the White House trying to do so for someone who has never worked in the White House or held any title in the administration. Now, you might wonder, what do Democrats want to hear about from Corey Lewandowski? But you'll recall he had that conversation with the president where the president directed him to send a message to then Attorney General Jeff Sessions about reining in the special counsel's investigation, something that in the Mueller report they said that Corey Lewandowski never followed through on. But of course, these discussions are going on, and while no final decision has been made, it does show you just how the White House is trying to really test the boundaries here and whether or not they can get people who have never even worked in the White House to not have to answer questions about sensitive matters related to the Russia investigation.
Yeah, executive privilege usually just for people in the executive branch. Caitlin, one of President Trump's key arguments for re-election, of course, is the economy, which has been doing well. He certainly seems anxious about all the recent turbulence.
Yeah, you might have picked up on that from all of the president's tweets. And we're told behind the scenes there is a growing sense of anxiety and unease in the White House about how the economy is doing and whether or not it's staying stable. Because, of course, aides inside the White House and in the president's re-election campaign say that they believe that is key to keeping the White House.
I was scared. My ears was ringing. That first shot had my ears ringing.
Asteria Williams told us she hit her bedroom floor when she heard gunshots just feet from her window overnight.
My room is right here. I'm right here by it.
Rockdale County Sheriff's deputies spent hours Monday collecting evidence on White Oak Court after a man who lives in this home shot and killed 3 masked teenagers he confronted on the front lawn.
He's a nice dude. He's a nice, caring dude. If they would have knocked on the door and asked him for anything, he would have gave it to them. He's a nice dude.
Earlier, while investigators worked the scene,
he didn't have to kill them.
Frustration from this group, who wouldn't give their names, but told my colleague Sophia Choi they're related to one of the teens who died.
That's not how it's supposed to go. I understand one shot to stop the people, the victims or whatever, but aggressively to shoot these little teens, that's an overkill. That's too much to handle.
Neighbor Carlos Watson told us the gunfire woke him up. Then a small army of deputies flooded the cul-de-sac within minutes.
Chaos. I moved here from Chicago, so it kind of put me back into a mindset. I didn't know what was happening initially, and I just wanted to make sure everybody was okay.
And while investigators work to understand exactly what led to the shooting, for Asteria Williams,
it's sad. You shouldn't risk your life for nothing like that because you can't get it back. Now they gone and it's sad.
As a father, as a parent, it breaks my heart. As a sheriff, it angers me to no end. Something to this degree, how a human being could even do this.
Detectives say this missing mother of 4, 32-year-old Casey Jones, is dead. Her body found in the back of her husband's van. 38-year-old Michael Jones crashed that van alongside 301 in Brantley County last night. A man who lives nearby responded to the noise of the crash and spoke to Jones.
Picking berries and working, and we heard a big explosion, and then we walked to the highway and we seen the van down there in the ditch, and we ran down there and asked him was he okay or whatever, and I smelled that smell. It smelled horrible. I ain't never smelled that smell in my life.
Did you have any idea what was inside?
And I thought he used the bathroom on himself, to be honest, but the owner that just pulled up, he told me that it smelled like a dead body because he smelled one before. His eyes was big and he was trying to get us away from the vehicle pretty quick.
Yeah.
And he was acting kind of weird.
The Brantley County Sheriff's Office says Jones told a deputy, "You may want to put me in handcuffs. There's a dead body inside the vehicle." Jones is now in jail and charged with second-degree homicide in her death. Jones admitted to police he had hid other bodies nearby in Charlton County before getting in that accident. We now know those bodies are the 4 missing children, ages 10, 5, 2, and 1.
Now, as far as I'm concerned, as the sheriff of this county, underneath the jail ain't good enough. He has no right to walk the face of this earth. I hate to be him when he stands before the Lord.
The 5 were last seen 6 weeks ago. Casey Jones's family just reported her missing on Saturday.
He's a relative rookie to Israeli politics, but he's well known in Israeli military circles. Benny Gantz made a name for himself after 38 years of military service, working his way up to become the country's 20th chief of staff. He was raised in the town of Kfar Achim, central Israel, by parents who survived the Holocaust. Gantz led the Israeli military through 2 wars in Gaza in 2012 and 2014. He left the army 1 year later and waited the required 3 years before entering politics. The move followed that of others in Israel's military, famously Yitzhak Rabin and Ehud Barak. Both went on to become prime ministers. Gantz's party, Israeli Resilience, consisted entirely of candidates who had never served in the Knesset before. To boost his chances of unseating Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, he merged his Israeli Resilience party with 2 others, forming the Blue and White Party, the colors of Israel's flag. His slogan for prime minister, Israel before everything. Gantz vowed to pursue peace, but mirrored Netanyahu's hardline position on Iran.
On my watch, you will not become a regional power, and I will not hesitate to use force if and when needed.
On the question of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Gantz said he wouldn't make any unilateral moves, such as annexation or withdrawal, without a negotiated political process. He vowed Israel would never retreat from the Golan Heights. He took a stand against corruption, promising zero tolerance.
עצם המחשבה שיכול לכהן בישראל ראש ממשלה שהוגש נגדו כתב אישום מגוחכת בעיניי, לא יקום ולא יהיה.
It was an attack on Netanyahu, who faces possible charges of bribery and breach of trust in ongoing graft probes. Netanyahu has denied all the charges. In April's election, his blue and white party tied Netanyahu's Likud party with 35 seats apiece. But when Netanyahu couldn't form a government, he called new elections, and Gantz never got his chance to lead. Now he has a second chance after Netanyahu failed to form that government for the first time in Israel's history, dragging the country back to elections. Gantz may not be as charismatic as Netanyahu, but he is seen as untainted by Israeli politics. Even so, he remains a serious contender for the top spot in Israel.